House Intelligence Committee and is among those who receives classified briefings on this crisis. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
We want to get more information on what is taking place. The White House has sent thousands more troops to NATO countries in Eastern Europe. What are you expecting? Are you expecting war to break out in Europe this week?
Well, Maria, this is absolutely happening, as you have related, as a result of the weakness of the Biden administration. They've shown weakness. Russia is taking advantage of that. We see over 100,000 Russian troops amassed outside of Ukraine. Russia portraying this as a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but there is no threat from Ukraine to Russia. This is actually Russia's continued threat to the West and to the United States. They see Ukraine moving closer to the West, closer to the EU, closer to NATO. And they want to quash that, being an authoritarian regime attacking democracy. I'm very concerned that Putin has gone beyond the point of no return, and that we may see war opening up in Europe. And this is going to be very dangerous for the United States and for our allies. We have NATO allies that are in the area that could be at risk. It could become entangled in a broader Russia aggressiveness. And of course, we see Russia modernizing their military and taking direct threats to the United States.
Yeah, so tell me about the impact on America, because President Biden has not communicated what the impact is. We're looking right now at all of the U.S. troops right now stationed in NATO countries and where they are. Another 3,000 troops are being sent to Poland in the upcoming days. What is the impact on America should war break out in Europe this week? Well,
it could trigger our NATO obligations to engage. The president in his Lester Holt interview was saying, we can't go to Russia. But in fact, our obligations under NATO are that NATO and NATO countries protect themselves against potential Russian attacks. That would include the Baltics, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. Poland, of course, where we're sending troops. Romania, Bulgaria are all neighbors and in the area. A broader scope conflict would include, of course, the United States if Russia should so choose to do so. But the other aspect of this that's even more threatening is if you look at what Russia's doing in their modernization of their nuclear weapons, their aggressiveness in cyber attacks, what they're doing even in space to attack and undermine our space-based capabilities, clearly show that Russia's putting itself in a footprint to challenge the United States, and that means the world is much more dangerous for us.
So I know that the Nord Stream 2 sanctions have been talked about. This is supposed to be one of our points of leverage to put sanctions on. But why aren't sanctions on already to deter Putin from invading?
Right. There should have been some, very strong stance taken by the Biden administration for them to communicate to Russia that there will be consequences to Russia. Of course, the first thing that the Biden administration did was reverse the Trump administration's sanctions on Nord Stream 2. So it's being completed under the Biden administration's approval. Now they're talking about, perhaps reversing that, going back to the Trump administration's sanctions that should have remained in place. But the Biden administration has showed weakness. They've taken no steps. They've taken no concrete efforts to even illustrate to Vladimir Putin that there will be real consequences and what these consequences mean to Russia.
Well, look, we've seen joint military training between Russia and China, and I know Iran has also been brought into the fold. Talk to us about this partnership of China, Russia, Iran, what it means to America after we know President Obama cut defense spending through that sequestration years ago. Also, Tell us about the readiness of the U.S. military right now, particularly the Navy, as it compares to the China Navy.
Right. You're absolutely right. So during the Obama administration with sequestration, which were deep cuts to our defense spending, we had modernization plans in place that would have kept us at pace with what China and Russia were planning. Now we're trying to play catch up. And if we don't have reinvestment, we will be behind. We'll be, for the first time in my lifetime, in a situation where China and Russia have military capabilities that are greater than our own. And what obviously is of grave concern as you look at China, Russia, and Iran, there are no countries that threaten China, Russia, and Iran, but there are a number of countries that China threatens, Russia is currently threatening, obviously, and Iran itself and its adventuresomeness, including its threats to Israel and its seeking of an atomic weapon. This could open, as you have been foretelling, as you look to this issue of what does it mean if Russia invades Ukraine, as a much different world over the next 10 or 20 years, as we see these very powerful nations that are threats to the United States gaining in military capability, threaten their neighbors and gobble up their neighbors as they invade them.
Look, I think it's pretty clear that the Democrats have put America in a very bad spot, a vulnerable position. And now we have this breaking news this morning, something our viewers were well aware of, that Hillary Clinton made up a story to take down her political operative, Donald Trump. Back in 2016, Democrat paid operatives illegally hacked their political opponents' communications during a presidential campaign and then did it again to a sitting president. Your reaction to what we learned this morning about Russia hoax lie?
Well, this is absolutely outrageous. And when you look at Durham's pleadings in the Michael Sussman case, he is basically laying out a case of where a number of laws have been broken by the Clinton campaign and where people are being protected by Sussman's lawyers. In fact, the pleading is about trying to convince Michael Sussman and the court that he's not being well served by his own lawyers because they're, in fact, protecting the Clinton campaign and others in the allegations of their bias. So the pleading set out, though, as you just indicated, that Durham has evidence of compromising of computer systems in an attempt to try to basically frame the president of the United States as having Russia ties. Now, I think that this is going to lead in the end to Brennan, Clapper, and Comey. I think that what we see is not just political shenanigans or opposition research that you would see in the normal campaigns where people are trying to find information out about their opponents. This is where government is being used, where information that's political opposition research that is false is being made up, is trying to be placed into the government, into the FBI, to undertake criminal investigations that are absolutely false. This is a whole new level of corruption and is of grave concern.
Yeah, and we want to know when exactly Jim Comey and Clapper and Brennan started working with the Hillary Clinton campaign to take down her adversary. But frankly, these actions are characteristic of a third world dictatorship, not a democracy. So my question to you is, Adam Schiff, your colleague on the left, the Democrats have been in charge of the House since 2018. They not only have ignored, but actually denied the intelligence confirming that Hillary Clinton created the Russia hoax and used the Obama-Biden administration to spy on Trump. Will you, if you become chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, if the GOP takes the majority in November, will you hold hearings to finally reveal the truth? What will you do?
Absolutely. We have to get to the truth. I mean, this is a threat to our democracy itself. It doesn't matter really which political campaign this is or which political party this is. This is so wrong and allegations of such level of illegal activity that goes directly to our faith in our own government, that the truth must be found. Durham is doing a great job. I appreciate that he's got this in the court system and is trying to bring this to light. But we have to get to the bottom of this. We have to find the answers so this never happens again. So we never have Americans having to distrust their own government because of the politicalization of the FBI, of our intelligence community. This is very wrong. This is very, very much a danger. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle this is. Everyone should be outraged and everyone should want to get to the bottom of this.
But are you going to make sure to get to the bottom of it? Congressman, I've got to tell you, people are sick and tired of things like this happening with absolutely no accountability. We know that the FBI knew that the dossier was a bunch of bunk. We know that because there was a 3-day interview back in January of 2017 where the FBI interviewed Danchenko, the subsource of the dossier, and he said, oh, no, we made it up. We embellished it. It was friends having beers. We were just joking around. And yet that dossier was used as a part of an actual official intelligence report. The media ran with it. When will we see accountability?
Right. And I think that's what's so important about what Durham is doing, because, as you look, and we all do, for accountability, this is a criminal case that he's brought in federal court. Durham is laying out the information of his very exhaustive and I believe thorough investigation. We will certainly use every tool that we have in the Intelligence Committee, and I think certainly Jim Jordan on the Judiciary Committee and others will make certain that we use every aspect of congressional power to get to the bottom of this. But there is accountability as these criminal cases move forward. Durham's getting to the bottom of this. He's bringing forth allegations, although very troubling, are a result of his investigation, and they're in criminal court, and that's where accountability can be found.
All right, real quick, Congressman, before you go, if we see Russia invade Ukraine on Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever it is in the next couple of days, what's the U.S.'s first move?
Well, I mean, we're going to have to immediately work to shore up our allies and rally NATO to make certain that all of the nations in Europe that are under NATO have their militaries on alert and put weapon systems in place to protect themselves. And the administration immediately has to move on sanctions.
Congressman, thanks very much for your leadership. We'll be watching all of that. We appreciate your time. Mike Turner this morning in Ohio.